With the Citi Double Cash Card, you get 1% cash back when you buy and 1% as you pay. That's like the joy of discovering the last donut.
Ooh.
And it has your name on it, literally, in chocolate sprinkly things.
No way.
Double the love with the Citi Double Cash Card. Apply now at Citi.com/doublecash.
It's Golic and Wingo. Except not Mike Golic Jr., Matthew Berry here.
No.
Matt Berry.
Matt.
You want? Oh,
Yeah,
you're the
yeah.
Matt.
Yeah.
You're the, I wasn't sure. I see it on the Twitter as Matthew. It's
No, on the Twitter, it's just the Matt.
it is just
Yeah,
the Matt?
we should probably have a get to know your co-host here.
Wow, exactly.
Yeah.
This is a bad know your buddy right here.
We don't throw the
I let out the
few
gate
on anything.
This is for anyone that may not be familiar as to the why here, it's the ESPN faux pas because we have a Matthew Berry.
We do.
We want to avoid Matt Berry getting all of your fantasy questions thrown his way.
And they send them to me.
Oh, I'm sure, in droves.
And I give the worst advice possible.
Just to try and make the other
just because
Matthew Berry look
I've been
bad?
called Matthew. I was called Matthew yesterday for the holiday. I'd call in, check in with the parents.
Oh, yeah.
They call me Matthew.
Okay, so they're the ones that get the pass. Round these parts, it's just Matt.
It's Matt. And
It
it
is
showed
strictly
up.
Matt.
It's funny you bring that up because when I started here about 5 years ago, it showed up because it's my legal name.
Yes.
And it showed up on a lot of my ESPN information.
Oh, yeah.
Email, badge, desk.
So did you get a lot? You get a lot of emails like, "Hey, we need you to come down and tape the 06010 podcast."
I had that changed immediately. When I figured out that if my name stayed like that around the building, that I'd have to hang out with Field Yates, changed it immediately.
Yeah, that'll make you get up and start working very quickly.
Yes,
Field
it will.
is an absolute nightmare.
Yeah, you can't be around him too often.
No, I have actually a similar problem, as you can imagine,
Yeah.
having the same exact name. So the email is just Mike and Michael. That's the only differentiator between the two. So as you can imagine, I have received a lot of emails that were not supposed to be for me.
Do you like it when people call you Junior? Does that bother you?
No, I've actually always been of the ilk that people can call me whatever they need to because I've been called a lot worse by offensive line coaches.
So I can call you whatever I want.
Yes. Oh, I mean, listen, as long as it's FCC appropriate, you're good. And
this is
even,
gonna be great.
Even that would be fine. So, yeah, pick your poison, especially considering the way I botched this off the top. I deserve whatever you would like to call me.
you come out of the gate with Matthew Berry.
Yeah, no, it's going to be hard to recover from that
If
one.
there was a way to just start the show over, like if we could
Do
run
you think
the show,
there is? Can we just
run
play
the show
can we
over
play the
again?
horns again? Can we do that whole thing again? We just need to hit restart on this. Do I have the horns? Are there horns on here?
You got to have the buttons.
Nope, that's not
No,
it.
that's not it.
That's
Now
a
you're
different
gonna start
one.
pressing buttons. There we
no,
go.
that's not it.
Oh,
That's not
see.
it either. Is it this one?
There we go. Try it again. All right.
Good morning. It's Golic and Wingo.
Yeah.
Except not. Guys out today, Mike Golic Jr., Matt Berry
Thank you, Michael.
of SportsCenter fame, hanging out with us here this morning, the morning after the morning. The big guy came and went. Santa Claus was here and gone, and now we are here, definitely calling each other by the right names.
Yeah, how was your Christmas?
It was good. As someone who grew up in town, it's easy to go home and see mom and dad often, but brother and sister came back in town. Brother's wife was there, so we had that first cross-pollination of holidays where he went and did Thanksgiving with her family.
Oh, okay.
She comes down and does Christmas with our family. That whole bit of news. So it was good, though. No complaints.
Yeah, good lazy Christmas.
Exactly.
There's nothing better than a lazy Christmas. A lot of stuff going on with the family. You've got sports. You have to watch Christmas movies. To be able to have like a sweatpants Christmas, that's the best. I started Christmas morning off with a Bloody Mary.
That's a good.
Just
That's
right out of the gate.
That's a good start. It's the sweatpants of drinks. It just
It
gets you in that
absolutely
mood
is.
right away.
Yeah, right out. You just got the sweatpants.
Now, were you in town? Were you out of town?
I was
Did
in
you?
town. Yeah,
Okay.
in town. I was in town, and then inevitably the TV is going to force you to watch A Christmas Story for way too long.
So I noticed this yesterday. Saw you tweeting pretty disparagingly about this movie, and I have to ask because Christmas Story to me is not a movie that invites a lot of strong feelings. You know, it's the sweat. If we're going to continue with the sweatpants trend,
Sure.
It's the sweatpants of movies where it's comfortable. You're used to it. You've seen it over and over again. It's been well vetted. I don't think the highs are too high or the lows are too low. I'm wondering what your issue with it is.
My issue with it is that when A Christmas Story was a thing, let's call it 10 years ago, it was a cult thing. It was like you and I would talk about it. You would quote it. It would be there. You would know it. You would kind of like it. But the fact that they now shove it down your throat and 2 networks have to have a Christmas Story marathon all day. You're telling me on one of those networks you couldn't throw National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. You couldn't throw on Elf. There are so many other Christmas movies. The fact that now is overplayed, overrun, overquoted, and to be perfectly honest with you, it's not that funny. It's just not that funny.
Not a big fan of the Bumpuses, the dogs?
No.
Man, I thought that movie...
The parents kind of put me in a bad mood.
The parents are a tough sell. It's not a great crowd, although I live for the moment. It's one small moment tucked away. You talk about it being sort of a cult thing. I find my very, off the beaten path moment.
Sure.
When Ralphie is living through that fantasy where he suffered the blindness on the count of the soap poison.
Yeah.
And he delivers that news to his parents. They said, what did it? What did we do so wrong? And it was soap poison. To hear the dads wail, right in that moment always brings me back to why I still put up with that movie year after year. Because I'm with you. I wonder how we landed on that movie being the one deserving of 24 hours.
Not only 24 hours, but 2 networks.
Double up.
There are 2 television networks that have decided that that's the movie you have to watch on Christmas Day. I would much rather see a Christmas Vacation marathon, even a Home Alone marathon. Give me Home Alone on 2 networks instead of A Christmas Story.
You know what? It's 2017. We've clearly seen you can decide college head football coaches on Twitter. You can shame athletes on Twitter. Why can we not get this changed with some sort of uprising from the masses to see if we can pick a different movie to show for 24 hours on Christmas next year?
I would like to do that. I don't have that many followers.
I don't either. But
so we would
this show's got a lot. We could just hijack the show handle. We need to use
that. Is your dad on Twitter?
Yeah, he's got a bunch, and his Twitter account is up for grabs.
So we're going to use the show Twitter handle.
At Golic and Wingo, by the way, if you want to tweet us.
Your dad's Twitter handle.
Yes, at ESPN Golic.
And Matthew Berry TMR.
Yes, there we go. See?
We're going to use the other Matthew Berry's Twitter handle to get in and start this movement.
All right, perfect. If you guys want to be a part of the movement, tweet at any of those handles. We're going to try and get this off the ground because I think you're onto something. We're due for a change.
If one more person comes up to me and say I won a major award.
It is a major award.
I'm going to throw my coffee at him. It's just not funny anymore.
Fragile?
See, there we go. Here we go.
You know what? I've got the perfect save for you to get away from this. You've dealt with too much Christmas Story already. I think we're going to give you a little dose of Off the Top instead. You good with that? Or can we go to that?
Let's
All
dance.
right, perfect.
It's time for
Off the Top.
Whether you like it or not, it's just beginning.
With Golic and Wingo.
And we begin with
Off the Top.
Part of our Christmas quadruple header from yesterday in the NBA. The Warriors beat the Cavs 99-92, holding Cleveland to its lowest field goal percentage since Christmas Day of 2015. Draymond Green became the 6th player in NBA history to record a triple-double on Christmas.
I like it because I like setting the table for what could be another matchup between the Cavs and the Warriors. I'll say this, there's a lot to be said still in the Eastern Conference. The Celtics are a really good basketball team. Out west, you've got the Rockets when Chris Paul is healthy. But the fact that when these two teams get together and there's just visible disdain for one another, I think it sets the table because everybody likes to say maybe Christmas Day is when you start paying attention to the NBA. If that's what happened yesterday between these two teams with how Kevin Durant's kind of modeling himself this year, I love it. Give me that again.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of conversation around what went down at the end of the game there. Some questionable no calls down the stretch involving Kevin Durant and LeBron James. But you're right. Ever since, especially last year's finals, now that Kevin Durant's come into the fold, seeing the way they've sort of bristled, especially him and LeBron, in an NBA where we really want our stars to go at each other, they've started to give us more and more of that.
And we'll get into that later because this I call it a new Kevin Durant.
Yes.
Because we just haven't seen this chippiness out of him throughout his entire career. I think there's something to be said about how he's trying to put himself up and portray himself around the league. So Cavs Warriors for me is always intriguing just because of the star caliber of opponent and player you have against.
We want the best all on the court at one time. Why not? One of those burner accounts took over full time for Kevin Durant apparently in 2017. Yeah. We'll see about that going forward.
Off the Top.
And we continue with Off the Top. The Thunder beat the Rockets that you mentioned 112-107 in their 5th straight game and improved to 11-3 this month. Oklahoma been closing out better of late, 9-1 in its last 10 games decided by 6 or fewer points.
The fact that we now have that trio, you said it, they've won 5 straight. I think they started the season 4-7 or 4-8, something pretty bad to start the year. But they're one of those teams that when you get them going with Carmelo, with Westbrook, with Paul George, they said it last night after the game, and I thought Russell Westbrook made a great point. We're starting to learn how teams are going to defend us. When they figure out how teams are going to attack them and they figure out how to distribute the ball to each of those scores, that's a really, really good basketball team, and I would put them up there. If you're looking at the Western Conference powers, Golden State obviously starts number 1. A lot of people like Chris Paul and James Harden with the Rockets number 2. Oklahoma City's not a trio you want to face going into the playoffs if those guys start figuring it out.
No, and I think this is the best thing possible for this version of the NBA that we're getting, where this offseason was marked by all of these big power shifts to try and shuffle the deck and go at Golden State and Cleveland and what they've built there. And so if you have that starting to work, I think it's incentive for us to see more big-time moves like that, for more of the stars around the league to say, okay, I need to figure out how to get myself involved in this picture.
And the NBA needed this to work because this is what the NBA's done now. The ratings are up across the board. They pretty much dominated the news cycle from the finals through the offseason and free agency. They dominated that news cycle because of moves like the Carmelo Anthony or the Paul George, and because of it, the Western Conference is stacked. So with this working, to your point, you could start seeing super teams all over the place. We kind of see that now.
Exactly.
But even more so where it's commonplace, not only in the Eastern Conference, but the Western Conference.
Yeah, people wanted to see these moves translate, and so far it seems to be trending in that direction for a lot of the parties involved.
Off the top.
We did have NFL action as well. Yesterday, the Eagles beat the Raiders in a Sunday night battle for the ages. 19-10. They do clinch home field advantage throughout the NFC playoffs. They overcame their worst offensive performance of the season, recorded season lows in total yards, first downs, and third down conversion percentage, and it looked like it.
I do want to give them credit for it being on a Monday Night Football stage because we had the doubleheader on Christmas yesterday. But the Eagles, they're the number 1 seed in the NFC. They've done a lot, but a lot of that had to do with Carson Wentz. I just don't buy the Eagles as a Super Bowl team. They don't do enough for me defensively, and they don't do enough for me all over to not show you that team was, by and large, Carson Wentz and Carson Wentz only. Nick Foles, look, there are a lot of teams that would line up for him to be their backup quarterback. But when you're going through the gauntlet of an NFC playoff run, and albeit it's at home, there are a lot of teams that can do two things that's going to present problems for them: run the ball and play defense. And I just don't know that Nick Foles is a guy that you look at and say, he's going to take us to a Super Bowl.
I look at it like this. To your point, backup quarterbacks, we see the value in what, let's say, Brett Hundley did in Green Bay, which is keep us alive long enough to get back to the starter. We've been looking at Nick Foles through an entirely different lens, which is this is your audition for what we expect in a playoff run, where this team was a potential Super Bowl favorite, or at least one of the teams in the NFC we thought had that capability. And with that in mind, this is a team I look at and say, yeah, you've got home field, you've got the first round bye. I'm not sure you win a game in the playoffs.
Yeah, Raiders aren't great. They struggled with the Giants 2 weeks ago. Eagles are a great story because of the development of their second-year quarterback, and I think they're going to continue to do that under Carson Wentz. Nick Foles takes a lot out of them in terms of what you look at in a team that's going to go to the Super Bowl for the NFC. Nice win. In my mind, they're a number 1 seed because of the 15 weeks prior.
We will wait and see. That team, a lot of questions going into the playoffs. Few less about this next team.
Off the top.
Though they were playing without their star receiver Antonio Brown, the Pittsburgh Steelers cruised over the Texans with a 34-6 win. They clinch a first-round bye in the playoffs. Each of the last 2 times they've had a first-round bye in the playoffs, they've reached the Super Bowl, won it all in 2008, lost in 2010.
If you are giving me my Christmas gift card collection, like all the gift cards that I got, and you're asking me to slide all of that currency onto a team not only in the AFC but the NFL, there is something about the Pittsburgh Steelers that makes me believe that they're the top team, not only in their conference, but in the NFL. I know they lost to the Steelers, and they're going to have to go through Foxborough. But with the way that they play defense, they're a top 5 defense. They're a top 5 offense. People look at the game last week against New England. I think if we had an intelligent conversation, an honest conversation about how that thing went, I believe the Pittsburgh Steelers are the best team in the NFL as we sit here the Tuesday morning after Week 16.
Yeah, no, listen, that Patriot loss is going to stick with a lot of people because it fits into what we've seen historically for them. But that game, unbelievably close, and Pittsburgh did some things differently in that game. You mentioned defensively. I think I saw last night now 49 sacks on the year. They have been an absolute pressure cooker on defense. Trail, I think, only Jacksonville as far as total production on that side of the ball in the sack department this season.
And when you look at what they've been through, with all the drama that they've dealt with throughout the season, to be sitting here at 12-3 and getting a bye in the first round of the playoffs, that's a really good football team. And I think Big Ben's got the best team he's had in a while to make a run at getting another Super Bowl.
It will be interesting, and let's stick there as that was.
Off the top.
It's Golic and Wingo here. Mike Golic Jr., Matt Barry here with you guys on ESPN Radio and ESPN2 this morning. And I think with the Steelers, this is what we've always expected, because we come into almost every season looking at the talent on this roster and saying, this may be the most talented team in the NFL, bar none, pound for pound. And this is a team that has leaned into those expectations a lot this season. Mike Tomlin was very upfront, pointing towards that Week 15 matchup with New England, and they're very upfront about their goals. And last night, after the game, Ben Roethlisberger talked about the lofty expectations for this team looking towards the Super Bowl. Maybe he did. He won a second.
I would give him the benefit of the doubt that he knows what his expectations are.
I think so, and we'll hear from those expectations now.
You know, we're not really thinking about that right now. I understand what it means because I've been in this business a long time. But, you know, we're getting ready for Cleveland Browns.
Is that Mike Tomlin or Ben Roethlisberger?
Either way, they're getting ready for the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, no, it sounds like they're getting ready for the Browns.
You don't really need to do much to get ready for the Cleveland Browns.
No.
We are to this radio show right now what they are to the Cleveland Browns. You can show up and you get a win. You're not going to be the Cleveland Browns slump buster. But where you are in Pittsburgh, I don't think anybody looks at the Steelers and says, you know what, the Patriots have a mental edge over that team this year. Yeah. I know historically Brady does. I think it was 11-2 against Pittsburgh in his career. He's got that team's number. But anybody that looks at where these teams are this year, third and fourth respectively, offense and defense for the Pittsburgh Steelers. You look at the Patriots, first overall in total offense, 29th in defense. Pittsburgh's the better team on paper. Now they have to go to Foxborough and get it done. But there's just something about what this team brings to the table with Le'Veon Bell. I know Antonio Brown's going to be back. Randy Moss, we'll get into that later about how he believes that perhaps Pittsburgh is benefiting from Antonio Brown being out. I wholeheartedly agree with him. It forces Big Ben to look at some of his other weapons. This is a really, really good football team. I'll put all of my gift card balance on Pittsburgh coming out of the AFC.
And anyone who's coming off this Christmas holiday knows exactly how valuable that is. Because say Pittsburgh is in the zone, brought to you by AutoZone. Get in the zone today. It is AutoZone. That is a lot of AutoZone all in one sentence. But I'm with you on this. I think that becomes an interesting debate because the one corollary to this is Antonio Brown is out right now with the calf injury. They've got the first round bye, so that's certainly what you hope because they expected him to be healthy, hopefully by wild card weekend, but there's a difference of healthy enough to play and is this thing going to allow him to go out there and still be the best receiver in football?
But that's just it. When you look, Martavis Bryant, I don't think there's anybody that watches the NFL that doesn't think Martavis Bryant has the skill set to be one of the best receivers in the league. You get him going. Juju Smith-Schuster, phenomenal rookie season at USC. They want to get the tight end involved. Le'Veon Bell. I mean, there are so many different weapons for Pittsburgh that you don't need to just rely on one. And think about if he gets Martavis involved in this offense, like he's got the capability to do, and then you put Antonio Brown back in the mix. He's an MVP-type player year in and year out. If you get all of those guys working between Brown, Juju Smith-Schuster, Bryant, and Bell, forget the Steelers or the Patriots can't combat that. They just can't.
The thing I worry about with Martavis Bryant and putting too much faith there, because in the game where Antonio Brown went down, the game against New England, or it was New England.
Yep.
We saw the Martavis Bryant that we had all been craving. We've been sitting around here looking for any bit of him to feed us that way. And to me, that feels like what we've been doing all season with the Atlanta Falcons, is every once in a while we get a big game from Devonta Freeman. Every once in a while we get a big game from Julio Jones. And we'd say, man, maybe this offense can get back to where it was last year. And at some point, maybe you just are who you are. And that Atlanta Falcons team is one that's underperformed all season, especially offensively. Maybe Martavis Bryant just doesn't have it to put it all together this year based on what he's been through with this Pittsburgh team. It's a nice thought down the stretch, and maybe these reps the last couple of weeks are enough to make him feel involved. I know that was a big point of contention when he was asking for a trade early this season. I just worry about putting too much faith in him through this process as opposed to where the real focus in this is for me, which is the true health of Antonio Brown on the back end.
If you look, and this across the board, the entire NFL playoff structure, give me one other team in the NFL, NFC, AFC, whose skilled position players you would rather have than the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't think there's one.
Oh, I don't even know if that's close.
Know if it's close.
Yeah.
No.
To have maybe the best running back and the best receiver on one team, you could stop there and say, I don't know if I would take a lot of groups over that. Maybe you get close in Minnesota with the receiving duo that they've got there that a lot of people have called the best in football.
Yeah, but even then, I'm not. Maybe New Orleans backfield with Kamara and Mark Ingram. In terms of running, you've got a guy that can pound between the tackles. You've got a guy you can get out of the backfield. But top to bottom, there isn't a team this morning as we sit here on December 26th where I could look at and say, you know what? If I'm going to put it on a team to go to the Super Bowl and go to Minneapolis and play in the Super Bowl, Pittsburgh Steelers, I mean, they look really, really good, and I know they want another shot at the Patriots.
I just saved hundreds of dollars by switching to Geico. I'm so happy, I feel like I can fly.
Disclaimer, you will not be able to fly by switching to Geico. This is against the laws of physics and nature. If you find yourself flying, please seek professional and or medical help immediately. In the unlikely event you find yourself flying, you might be a superhero, or a pigeon, or a superhero named Pidgewoman, who was bitten by a radioactive pigeon. If you are indeed Pidgewoman, Geico retains all licensing publishing rights in the event Pidgewoman the movie becomes a top-grossing Hollywood blockbuster.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
Blue Moon is brewed with Valencia orange peel and a touch of coriander. It's a creative twist on a Belgian-style wheat ale for a taste that shines brighter. Taste responsibly. Blue Moon Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado.
It's Golic and Wingo. Mike Golic Jr., Matt Berry filling in today on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. You can also watch on ESPN2. We're presented by Progressive Insurance. We've got a great guest list for today. Tim Legler going to join us at 7:30, Marty Smith, Party Marty at 8 o'clock, Josina Anderson at 8:30, and Brian Windhorst at 9. All phone guests will join us in the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. And if you miss any of those guests, you can listen to all 4 hours of Golic and Wingo on demand in the ESPN app.
I hope we see Josh Rosen in that Cactus Bowl. There was thoughts of him still being in the concussion protocol. Hadn't been cleared yet. He said that if he is cleared for today's game, he'd like to play. This brings up a whole other conversation of whether or not some of these top prospects in the NFL draft should be playing in bowl games.
Something that he spoke on very eloquently the other day.
Yeah, and so we saw McCaffrey do it last year, Leonard Fournette. These are some of the bigger name players that have done this in the past to get ready for the NFL. I don't have a problem with it. I think Josh Rosen, I mean, this begs into the conversation of whether or not university and player are using each other properly.
Yep.
With the millions of dollars head coaches make in college football, I certainly don't have a problem with once each party, university and player, is done using each other properly for the course of their 3-year career. If player wants to just sit out for a bowl game that's not a college football playoff game or a New Year's Six game, fine. Get ready for your pro career. Because college in and of itself, it's to get you prepared for your career.
Exactly, in a general sense. And so once you've done that here, once you've built yourself up to that point, I'm with you. People get worried about the slippery slope of what that could mean going back towards the season once a team's out of contention for one of those big bowl games if a guy just starts to shut it down. Mm-hmm. I think that does a bit of a disservice to the competitor that most of these guys are. You don't get to that level without wanting to play.
Right.
But you understand right at the finish line here, these guys are staring at millions of dollars for the most part, the guys that are thinking about making this decision on the other side of that decision.
And let's be honest, Josh Rosen playing for UCLA for a coach that's not going to be there because Chip Kelly got the head coaching job against Kansas State, by and large, doesn't mean anything.
No.
It's a bowl game, and it should mean something. But for Rosen, I'm talking about Rosen specifically. Most of that UCLA roster is not going to be in the NFL. But when you're one of the outliers that has an opportunity to be a top 3 pick, you have to look out for yourself in the long run. And others, some purists, say, well, then don't play, then don't have the bowl system. Well, look, these players have to look out eventually for them after there's a lot of fan base or a lot of the college football fan base that thinks that they're not looked after with how the structure goes with all the money. I don't buy that part of it. I think it's a perfect system with how it's structured. But if this is the opportunity for the player to make a case for their career, now's the time to do it.
I would agree, and while we disagree on the perfection of the system, I agree with this idea that the player at this point needs to start looking out for themselves in that regard, because I don't think, especially at the end, bowl season means a lot of different things to a lot of different people, and when you talk about the coaching staffs that maybe are going to be around after bowl season, not necessarily where there's been a change, but even for the players, the other players at UCLA who may not be going to the NFL but are coming back, this is one of their parts of their audition for Chip Kelly and that new staff, to say, you may not know much about me, but you're going to learn over the course of this bowl game. I just had 15 more practices to get better, on and on down the list. That's the value of bowl season for me. To your point, it's not for these guys that have already maxed out the ability and the opportunity at this level.
And we'll get into Baker Mayfield coming up in just a bit and his decision to play in the Senior Bowl. I think it's a brilliant move, but we'll talk about that. But we've hijacked the Twitter handle, the Golic and Wingo Twitter handle today, because we started out the program with my rant on thinking A Christmas Story is completely overrated. In fact, I don't laugh a half of time watching that movie, and I've seen it numerous times. And I said that I wanted to start a movement where we get rid of the marathon on 2 separate networks.
It's a 2-channel, 24-hour marathon of this one movie.
So we've got numerous tweets. This apparently struck a nerve with a lot of people. A couple of people say, "Look, I'm all in. I'm all in. Like, I'm in for this movement."
The people are behind you on this.
Other people are saying, "You're an idiot. Shut up. I turned the channel." But this tweet comes in, and this is a legitimate question. What movie really could you watch for 24 hours straight? Now, are we going holiday movie, or are we going movie in general?
I think we go movie in general on this one. Because holiday movie, I don't want to limit people. We're now officially past Christmas. We're still basking in the afterglow.
We are.
This is, the post-Christmas cigarette, to speak.
After fat.
Yes, exactly. We're living in it right now. But we can open. I mean, are you comfortable opening this up with every movie? Do you want to keep it in the holidays? This is your movement that we've started.
Hey,
I'm just drafting off of this right now.
The genesis of the movement, the impetus of this was holiday movie marathon, and that we're forced to watch it on not forced. I mean, that's a little tough. But yeah. But we don't have a lot of choice. They've decided that that's the one you're going to watch on 2 different networks. I could open it up to
all right. At Golic and Wingo on Twitter, let us know, what movie could you? Do you have a ready answer for this one, or do you need time to think what movie you would watch for 24 hours straight?
But that's the other thing, is like, who's sitting there for 24 hours? I don't think anyone's even doing that with Christmas Story.
No,
it's the fact that I don't have an option outside of that if I'm looking for a particular movie that they've decided you're watching this.
Well, and I think, at least as I think through it now, the idea of having a movie on for 24 hours to me would say, we know it's Christmas. We know you're going to be busy, or Christmas Eve. You've got a lot going on. You may not be able to sit and watch this start to finish, but over the course of the day, you'll get the whole movie in a bunch of different parts.
It's like they're telling me it's good. Like, I don't have the choice. Like,
yes,
this is good and you're going to like it. You were going to eat broccoli for 24 straight hours, whether you like it or not.
You have just described the darkest corner of the hell in my mind, 24 hours straight of broccoli. But, to that point, we live in a Netflix culture now. We get to pick and choose the stuff we want to watch. We don't have to stand for this anymore.
No, I like to go old school on Christmas. I like to be an analog TV.
Oh, wow.
I bust out the bunny ears. I do. I don't even have a remote. I go up and
you turn the dial?
Yeah.
Man, you've officially lost me on this one now. I was all here for this movement, and now I am very disturbed. If I can't shout at some sort of unnamed electronic device that can do all these things for me, I'm pretty lost.
I would watch Goodfellas for 24 straight hours.
That'd be a solid pick. I feel like this is going to fall into the category of those movies you always stop and watch when they're on.
Speaking of, what gets a 99.9% stop and watch out of me, and I don't know why, Forrest Gump.
Oh,
it was on. Forrest Gump was on yesterday. I was like, this has nothing to do with anything, but I'm going to stop and watch Forrest run for a minute.
I think Forrest Gump actually has something to do with everything. Like, it's such an all-encompassing movie that it's got you. It feels like there's a little Christmas in it, and there's a little protest in it, and there's a little bit of all these parts of history.
Football.
Yeah,
Bear Bryant recruit.
Get to scratch the itch. Great kickoff returner.
Probably a 5-star back in his day.
Probably, yeah. There's probably no early signing day back then for Forrest Gump. We are Golic and Wingo, Mike Golic Jr., Matt Berry, sitting in here today, so you guys can chime in on that one. Join the movement at Golic and Wingo on Twitter. You can also join the movement potentially. We were talking about some of the NBA action from yesterday, the marquee matchup, the finals rematch from the last few years between the Golden State Warriors and the Cleveland Cavaliers, and really what's becoming the matchup to watch in this. Steph Curry out because of injury yesterday, but the focus has started to shift more and more to Kevin Durant as he's come over, and last night was a big part of the action down the stretch, involving a no call on LeBron James driving towards the basket, a couple of questionable no calls down the stretch that the two of them disputed. But just in general, Matt, this evolution of Kevin Durant from the quiet, lovable superstar in Oklahoma City to now almost a guy who's tried to morph himself into the villain in Golden State.
I like that he's buying into this wrestling character of a villain, because he became a villain in Oklahoma City when he left the franchise that drafted him to go to Golden State, and many people thought he was just doing that, oh, look, he's going to hop on a team to go get a ring that they were up 3-1 against in the Western Conference Finals. Why not stay and see that thing through? So he was labeled a villain by the broad public opinion, not only in Oklahoma City, but around the league. I believe last year, by and large, he tried to keep his mouth shut because he knew there was a lot of pressure to go into a successful situation that had already won a championship before to go get another one. They didn't really need him. He got his ring now. He's got what he went to go get.
And a finals MVP, which is probably just as important, if not more.
So he can now let his guard down and start replying to trolls on Twitter,
which we know he loves.
Can start mouthing off in games. He was ejected, I think, twice in the span of a couple of games, and he hadn't done that in his career. He's one of those players that's now starting to buy into what people are saying about him, and I think that it's good for the NBA because we always need a villain. LeBron was the villain forever when he left Cleveland to go to Miami, and he kind of bought into a little bit with that big three. But this new Kevin Durant, I'm all in.
I think he is the perfect, him and I would maybe throw Joel Embiid out too, as two guys that know how to play the NBA game that we like, which as any 90s, 80s NBA fan who sits and looks and waxes poetic with nostalgia about yesteryear when the game was real and there were tough guys and the guys hated each other. They weren't all hanging out in the offseason. You've started to get more of that, but we're coming at it a different way, like Joel Embiid chirping people on social media and constantly needling people in Philadelphia has been fun to watch because it's getting to some guys. You saw Russell Westbrook waving goodbye to him on the court. He's not a guy that's afraid to ruffle some feathers. Kevin Durant has been similar in that mold. He's been a guy that is hyper aware, we've seen, of what people think and say about him. Probably to a fault at sometimes.
Probably a little too sensitive.
But it's basically morphed him into saying, all right, I'm going to be the guy that you all want the NBA player to be. I'm going to be a guy that says last night, I want to check LeBron in the big moments. I want to be guarding him and try and shut him down. I want the shot at the last minute. And oh, by the way, I'm going to let all of you know that I am, I'm hearing everything you're saying and I'm going to chirp right back because I am the prototype millennial athlete.
And you have to wonder if this is something of Draymond Green rubbing off on him a little bit. Because I seem to think that when he was in Oklahoma City, he probably didn't want to act this way. He probably didn't know if Russell Westbrook had his back. And he probably didn't, look, this is my team. I'm the league MVP, but I don't know if this guy's going to look out for me if I get into a situation. Kevin Durant understands that Draymond Green has his back. Steph Curry kind of keeps his mouth shut, but he knows that Steph has his back. He's probably in a situation now where he doesn't have to be the face of the franchise. Steph has that on lock. So he can kind of just let his guard down a little bit, mouth off. Draymond's going to fight for him. And understand that regardless of what they do, they're going to be the best team in the NBA, and he can act this way knowing he's got people behind him.
Blue Moon is brewed with Valencia orange peel and a touch of coriander. It's a creative twist on a Belgian-style wheat ale for a taste that shines brighter. Taste responsibly. Blue Moon Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado.
It's Golic and Wingo. Mike Golic Jr., Matt Barry filling in today here on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. Want to remind you guys, you can tweet the show using the 1-800-Flowers.com Twitter feed, at Golic and Wingo, at MGolic Jr. 57, at Matt Barry. And we got it. You guys got it going this morning. So 24-hour Christmas Story Marathon was a big point of contention this morning. It's a big part of the holiday season. And as Matt Barry put it, it is a forced tradition on us right now. And so he asked the question, why this movie? And so we asked you, the listening audience, what movie would you put in its place? What movie would you watch for 24 hours if you had to choose? And the results have been encouraging.
Yeah, some of the tweets we've been getting, keep them coming with some of the at Golic and Wingo, what you would want to watch for a 24-hour marathon. A couple of the favorites for the Christmas marathon movie ideas, Christmas Vacation, Home Alone 1 and 2, and then Die Hard 1 and 2. That gets into a whole other debate about Die Hard being a holiday movie. The Princess Bride was one sent in by James. And then Terrence sent in The Godfather. Speaking of The Godfather, your dad, Senior, had a couple of them.
He did. Dad couldn't get Twitter to work, which is just its own perfect bit of cosmic justice in that. But his tweet wouldn't go through. Armageddon or Con Air, both very worthy entries into this.
I endorse both of those heavily.
Armageddon for me. Are you a movie crier at all? Does that happen? Because I can't get through Armageddon without, the room getting a little dusty every time.
When Bruce Willis is left on the asteroid.
Harry, I love you.
Yeah, that got a bit much, but I don't know that Armageddon's Armageddon's going to be the thing that launches guy cry out of me.
No, it's
watching
not,
a movie
doesn't do it for you.
The
barrier for entry into guy cry is very low for me. So you don't know this about me. I have under this hardened exterior a lot of feelings.
Really?
Yes.
So do you cry watching network television?
Let's not go that far. Let's not go that far. I know I haven't gotten into, because is that like the This Is Us phenomenon? Because I haven't gotten into that, just because every time someone brings that up, they're like, oh yeah, I sobbed this episode, and it's every episode. I can't deal with that.
Like sometimes I have to stop and make sure my wife is okay. Be like, are you okay? It's not not real.
Am I going to have to take you to the hospital? You're hyperventilating.
Like if you just want like a good just release of emotion. This Is Us.
That's it. That's the good cry you need. Good catharsis.
Well, keep it company related. Go Grey's Anatomy.
There we go. See? Well done. See, we're nothing if not company men around here. So keep those coming on Twitter at Golic and Wingo, at mgolic Jr. 57, at Matt Barry. We're going to get to the bottom of this and start the movement. But right now it's time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts. And last night in the NFL, we had the Philadelphia Eagles clinching the 1 seed in the NFC. But it sort of feels like it should come with an asterisk right now, because we've got very real fears about them going forward. You and I both, with Nick Foles having to be the guy for them down the stretch of this playoff run.
And look, you have to look at this in two parts. You have to give Philadelphia credit for the remarkable season that they had sitting at 13-2, but you also have to be realistic that a lot of that came from the fact that Carson Wentz is their MVP franchise quarterback. And I don't know if there's any team in the league of the 32 that say, Nick Foles is the guy that's going to lead us to a Super Bowl, because they've had that opportunity. Philadelphia did back in the day, and it wasn't good enough for them. So if you look at the NFC, some of the favorites of who could go to the Super Bowl, I don't even think that they're in the top three.
No.
I put New Orleans over them. Carolina's been there before. I like there are enough teams out there that could take advantage of Philly's unfortunate circumstance without Carson Wentz.
Yeah, I think you look at what this team has been asked to do, and Philadelphia has succeeded so much in large part because of the extracurricular plays from Carson Wentz, him getting out of the pocket, whereas opposed to Jared Goff in that same division, that offense has been set up a little more for him to succeed.
I'll tell you, people need to start taking, I know they're 11-4, but the New Orleans Saints, Drew Brees in a running game, and they play defense now.
Straight Talk Wireless, nationwide coverage on America's largest and most dependable 4G LTE networks.